Hey guys, it's Miss Wilson. I want to tell you that I believe in you and you can do it, okay? So, let's get started doing place values with decimals. Okay, so just kind of want to review just a little bit. We already know the units place, which is ones, tens, hundreds. You know, we could keep on going to thousands and millions and billions and trillions, but today, we're just going to be working on ones, tens, hundreds, and we're going to be focusing on the numbers or some of the numbers behind the decimal. Okay, so, and we know that anytime we see this decimal in math, it's always called a decimal. It's never called a period. I don't know if any of you have already called a decimal a period in math and gotten in trouble for it, but you never, ever call a decimal a period in a number. Please. You know why I know? Because I did that when I was in school. So please never do that. It's always a decimal. Okay? And the decimal can say point and it can say and. Okay? All right. So let's just kind of look at some of the numbers behind the decimal. Now, this is not nearly all the numbers that's behind decimals. A decimal number can go on forever, but we don't have forever, and we're not going to waste all that time trying to go that far behind the decimal. But the numbers I want you to know and to understand are the tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths, 100,000ths, millionths place. Okay, you know how I put that, the THS on the end? When you hear that, it's behind the decimal. Okay, it's behind the decimal. And this is just something that just to always put in the back of your mind, that the number in the tenths place when you're dealing with money represents your dimes, and the number in the hundredths place represents your pennies. Just put that in the back of your mind. That's just something you will know that your friends won't know. And when you are counting money, you can always think that's the tenths that represent the dimes, and that's the hundredths that represents the pennies. Okay? Anyways, that right there just made you a little bit smarter than the other kids in your classroom. Okay? And if you can remember that, and I know you will, tell some of them. Alright? So, anyways, so we got the tenths, the hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths, 100,000ths, 1,000,000ths place. Alright? Again, I know it's a little frustrating saying the ths, but that's okay. Practice on it. I'm sure you're probably spitting over everything while you're doing it. That's okay. You got this. All right, sweetie. All right, so let's do our first number. We're just going to say this number and identify the different place values in it. So we have 757 and 0.1395. Alright, so you may say, Miss Wilson, I don't know how to say that number. Well, you know how to say this part. This is 757. 757. And we can say 0.3195, or we can say 3,195 10,000ths. Okay? So you can say it either way. But what I really want you to do is I want you to tell me or to think about the number that's in just the tenths place. The tenths place. Is it the 5 or is it the 3? Remember I said tenths. Good. It's the 3. The tenths place is right behind that decimal. The hundredths place, the hundredths place is right behind the tenths place. The thousandths place is right behind the hundredths place. Okay? Good. What number is the 5? This 5 is. It's in the tens place. Good. The 1 is in the hundredths place. The 9 is in the thousandths place. Good job. All right. Y'all, Miss Wilson actually does have an eraser somewhere, but I don't know where I put it at this moment, second in time. Let's look at this number. 3.871. We can say 3.871. If you pronounce that number like that, that is perfectly fine. But you can also say 3 and 871 thousandths. Wherever the last number lands, that's the place value that you're gonna have to say. So it's 871 thousandths. Okay? So it's 3 and 871 thousandths. Or you can just say 3.871. Say that with me. 3.871. Can you say period? No. No. That's a trick question. No. You cannot say 3.871. Wrong answer. All right. I know that from this moment on, you're never going to forget that. It's locked in your head. All right. So you can say 3.871, or you can say 3 and 871 thousandths. Either way is fine, sweetheart. Okay? All right, let's go to the next number. So right now we're just learning how to say these numbers. All right, we have can you try and say this number? Okay, it is 961 and 500ths, or 961.05. Okay? 0.05. When you say point, after you say point, you just call out the numbers that's behind the decimal. Okay? So 961 and 500ths, or 961.05. That's it. Okay? Let's do the next one. We're just going over how to read these numbers. Okay? Alright. 2 ways we can say this number. We can say 48.6024. If you say that, perfectly fine. Or you can say 48 and 6,024 10,000ths. Okay? But the easiest way is just to say 0.6024. Okay? Now, let's do one more, and then we're going to get into identifying all right, what is this number? It's two, remember, it's 2 ways you can say it. 15.15, perfect. Or 15 and 1500ths. Okay? Good. Good job. So, this is how we identify decimals and say them. And let's just say, for the sake of you not knowing how to say it, if you see a number in the thousands place, we would say 4,615.15, or we would say 4,615 and 1500ths. Okay? So, this is how you say decimals. And this is how you use the place value. Okay? So now, We've said some numbers. Now we're going to, let's see. Now we're going to add some. Okay. Let's do a little adding of some place value numbers with the decimal. Because that may be a little tricky for you. And you may be thinking, okay, Miss Wilson, I know how to say it now, but at school, we got to do more than just say it. We have to add it and we have to subtract it or whatever. How do I do that? Well, I'm glad you just said something. Because I'm going to show you. And guess what? I know you can do it. No matter what I show you, I know that you can do it. And if you don't get it at this very second, you're going to go back and watch this video. And then you're going to get it. And it's going to help you with your homework. And you're going to make a good grade on it. Okay? So this is what I don't want you to do. I don't want you to panic. Okay? I believe in you, and I want you to believe in yourself because you can do this, okay? All right? So while I'm erasing this board, let's just go over the place value. Let's go over the place value starting at the ones place. Ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, millions, 10 millions, 100 millions, billions, 10 billions, 100 billions, trillions, 10 trillions, 100 trillions. And there are more numbers, but we're not going that far. Okay? So now look. You need to know place value. And this is the reason why you need to know place value. Because some of y'all that's watching this video, one day you're going to be millionaires. And you need to know what $1 million look like. Okay, let me show you how much $1 million look like. Let's say you make, let's just do $1 million. That's $1 million. Okay, that's with your dimes and pennies. Okay, that's $1 million. If you don't know your place value, somebody can say, oops. No, somebody can do this. And if you don't know your place value, they can say, they can write you a check. And that's supposed to be paying you $1 million. But they move this decimal up right here. And now you got all these numbers behind the decimal. Only the dime and the penny mean something. All the rest of that stuff is just numbers. And then they give you this. They write you a check that looks like this. And if you don't know place value, look, it's the same amount of zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then both of them have a 1. And they write you a check. And you don't know place value. They owe you $1 million. But because they know you don't know place value, they write you a $1,000 check. $1,000. 1,000 is only $1 more than $999. Okay? They ripped you off big time. They almost left you broke. That's why you need to know place value. If I move this decimal right here, this number still looks almost the same. But guess what? That's only $100,000. Do you know $1 million is 10 100,000s? You're supposed to get 10 of them. But they only gave you 1 because you don't know place value. I can do this. I could do that. It almost looks the same. but that's only $10,000. Okay? So that's why you need to know place value. Okay? So if you ever wonder, why do I need to know place value? So no one can ever rip me off of my money. Okay? Because as sure as I'm standing here, some of y'all that's watching this video, you're going to be rich. And you're going to need to know how much money you're supposed to have. Okay? All right. So that's why you need to know place value. So you can always know how much money you're supposed to have. No one can ever rip you off if you know how much money you're supposed to have. If you know place value. All right. So let's do... We got a few problems. Let's do 60 plus 5 plus 0.03 plus 0.06 plus 0.007. Whoops. 0.007. All right. We have that number. All right. Well, the first thing we have to do in order to do a problem like this, first of all, not penny, okay? It's simple addition. All right, so look, we have 60. And if you want to, if a number doesn't show you a decimal, there's always an invisible decimal behind every number. If you already see the decimal, then you already know what the decimal is. But if the number doesn't have a decimal, you can always put an invisible decimal. So look, you can say 60 plus 5, 0.3, 0.06. Just make sure you keep those decimals lined up. 0.007. Okay? Now, if you want to, you can add zeros all through there. But since I already know that this is nothing, I can say 7. 6 plus 0 is 6. 3 plus those 2 zeros is 3. Decimals are like kindergarten when you're doing adding and subtraction. You have to stay in a straight line. And then 0 plus 5 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0, or 5 plus all these zeros is 5. And there's nothing right here. That's my answer. Okay? Don't panic. I know it may seem hard. It's not hard, okay? Don't panic. Don't panic. I believe in you. When you see something that looks a little hard, take a deep breath and just don't panic, okay? Remember what you do know, okay? And when you're adding and subtracting decimals, remember they're like kindergartners. They have to stay in a straight line. When you are adding and subtracting decimals, they're like kindergartners. They have to stay in a straight line. When you are adding and subtracting decimals, they're like kindergartners. They have to stay in a straight line. Okay? Decimals are like kindergartners. When you're adding and subtracting, they have to do what? Have to stay in a straight line. Okay? If you don't see a decimal, you can always add a decimal. And then put all them decimals in a straight line. Okay? Decimals are like kindergartners when you're adding and subtracting. They have to stay in a straight line. Never forget that, my friend. Never, ever, ever, ever forget that. Okay, here we go. We have 200 plus 40 plus 3 plus 0.6 plus 0.08. Okay? Remember, here's a number. I don't see a decimal. When I come down, I'm going to say 200, and then I'm going to put a decimal. So I will know that there's no decimal behind it. And if you want to, you can put zeros. Okay? But since it didn't show me a decimal, I'm going to put that decimal behind there. That way I know how to keep it lined up. Here's the number 40. 40. And it doesn't have a decimal, so I'm going to put a decimal right there. Here's the number 3. I'm going to put a decimal right there. Then I have 0.6. And if you want to, you can put zeros right here if that makes you happy. So your numbers look straight. That's perfectly fine, sweetie. And then we have this last number, 0.08. And again, if you want to add zeros right there, those zeros don't change anything. They're just place markers. Okay? Remember, I'm adding decimals. They're like kindergartners. They have to stay in a straight line when I'm adding and subtracting. So, all these zeros plus 8 equals 8. All these zeros plus the 6 equals 6. There are my decimals. They're in a straight line like a kindergartner. All these zeros plus 3 equals 3. 0 plus 4 is 4. And then we don't have any numbers right there. We just have the 2. There's the 2. Okay? Just make sure you keep all your numbers straight, okay? All right? And if you really needed some help, let's see. This is the hundreds place, the tens, the ones, then we have the tenths, which is a fraction, the hundredths, this is the thousandths. Just think of the numbers behind the decimals. The decimal, little numbers that make you spit on people because you're trying to say, okay? Don't be spitting on people. I'm just saying, when you're trying to say them, sometimes you may spit a little bit. Okay, so look. We have 200. I'm just showing you another way you could do it, just so if you were confused, like where I'm supposed to put my numbers. You know what? I should have put these under. Yeah. Let me do it like this. Hundreds, decimal. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Alright. So, if you wanted to, if you got confused, you could make a place value chart if you wanted to. And you can say, oh, I got the number 200. Okay? I got the number 40. Because see, 40 is only a tens and a 1. Tens and a 1. I got the number 3. Okay? I got the number 0.6. I got the number 0.08. And you can add them like this. All I did was just use the place value chart. And you would still come up with all the same answers. Keep my decimals because they're in straight line. Because they're like kindergartners. And you would still come up with the same answers. And if you wanted to, you could still put a decimal right there. And you could still add zeros if you wanted to. Just so all the numbers look alike. Whoops, I wrote them a little bit bigger. I apologize. I always try to keep your numbers in line. Okay? But you could do it like this if you want to. If that made it easier. Okay? Alrighty? All I did was, on this side, was I just built the place value chart. All I did on this side is just kept my numbers in order and added them. But it doesn't matter which way you do it. Either way is fine. Okay, sweetie? Alright, let's do another one. And I'm going to keep my place value chart over here. Now, in school or on your worksheets, it may look like this. Your place value chart may look like this with some fancy lines or whatever. It's still a place value chart. Okay, sweetheart? Alright. All right, this is our last one. Let's do one. Let's do one in the thousands place. All right, so we have the number 5,000 plus 400 plus 80 plus 3 plus 1. 0.1. All right, there's two ways we can do this. 5,000 plus 400. Oops. Miss Wilson is doing too much. We can do 5,000. And remember, it doesn't have a decimal. It's not showing me a decimal, so I can just put a 0 right there if I wanted to. Plus 400. Doesn't have a decimal, I can put a 0. Plus 80. I'm just showing my decimals because remember, if a number doesn't show you the decimal, there's always an invisible decimal. And then you can add as many zeros behind that decimal if you want as you want to. It doesn't matter. 3.0. And then, there's our decimal number. So we say 0.1. All I got to do is add this up. All these zeros plus 1 is 1. Decimals, when you are adding and subtracting them, are like kindergartners. They have to stay in a straight line. So my decimals are in a straight line. All these zeros plus the 3 equals 3. Both of those zeros plus the 8 equals 8. 0 plus 4 is 4. And I bring that 5 down. And you remember, every time we have 3 numbers, we have to add a comma. 1, 2, 3, comma. Or I could have just said, bring your comma down. That's the answer. If you get confused by that, build a place value chart. We have 5,000 plus 400 plus 80 plus 3 plus 0.1. 0.1. I can come over here, add all this together. I can add the zeros and decimals or leave them to these top numbers. It doesn't matter. If you know just how to add, just gonna do it. 1. There's my decimal. Leave my decimal right there. 3. 8. 4. 5. And since this number is in the thousands place, I put my comma. Either way, sweetheart, it's fine. And we read this number, 5,483.1 or 5,483 and 1/10. Okay? Good job. I want you to watch this video again if you need to. And I want you to also know that I believe in you and you can do this, sweetie.